Hello. Now, I wonder if you remember the uh, Russian troop invasion into Russia in Belgorod the other week, using tanks, using armored vehicles, a fully functional battalion. And it turns out to be a mission to test the Russian defences in Belgorod, and those defences turn out to be extremely flimsy. And when you start looking at the Ukrainian and the Russian Telegram channels, you find a series of very interesting revelations. First of all, the Ukrainians deny that they're behind this invasion. So it turns out that the defences, the Russian defences, were useless. The Ukrainians are giving part truths. Slightly more truthful than the Russians, but still only partly truthful. And they claim they were not directly involved in this action. They also claimed that the Russian guerrilla force faced no resistance from the Russians, from the Belgorod troops, the Russian Belgorod troops stationed in Belgorod. This simply isn't true. There's a video at the frontier showing them being shelled. And the Ukrainian side seems to have sent journalists to interview this free Russian troop, this free Russian battalion, talking about the offensive and the captured Russian trophies. It seems that they suggested it was an easy operation. I think it probably was. And the Russian side, in contrast, have produced photos of captured vehicles, but there's no clarity that these vehicles are really captured. These are the same vehicles which the Russians are using all over the place. So the Russian Ministry of Defense have also gone on and shown 6 dead soldiers, which they claim which the Russian side claims are the Russian guerrilla fighters from the Russian Free Battalion, but they've produced no identities, so it's all very questionable. But there's clearly fighting going on, and so equally the Ukrainian claim that there was no resistance is not true. The Ukrainian side, I think what we can say is that the Ukrainian side faced less resistance than they expected. Now, Shebekina is a city, and it looks horrifying. Shebekina is a city in Belgorod, and there's been a big offensive going on for the last 2 weeks. And Ukraine claims they are not directly involved, or at least we're not directly involved in the initial onslaught, and that Russians are shelling their own city. Or indeed that the Russian Free Battalion is responsible. It's unclear, the fog of war. Shebekina is just one place, though, where this shelling is going on. It's covering the whole region, and the Russians have pretty well evacuated the region, the area. There's a scene here where a Russian soldier is explaining that they are evacuating people in these buses, but actually the buses aren't going anywhere because of the shelling. And what is clear is that this region has now been taken over by FSB units, by frontier units from the Russian army, Russian people wearing helmets, wearing military vests, on their own territory. So this demonstrates adroitly the success, or not, of Putin's regime, doesn't it? I mean, it really does demonstrate how brilliant Putin's special military operation has been, that he's actually got troops in full military uniform on his own territory, trying to defend his territory. But the problem is this now is a defensive operation. That's a little bit worrying. Ukrainian troops have also clearly moved into Belgorod, but we're going to have to qualify this as well. and people have been evacuated. This is a Ukrainian comedian who's fairly aggressive, and saying, "Oh, I've been evacuated from Shebekina. I've left Shebekina. It's now Shemekina, a destroyed city. Shemekina, a completely crushed city. Shemekina, smashed, crushed." It's very abusive stuff. Anyway, the point about the Ukraine forces is they're not Ukrainian forces. So I think Zelensky is right. This is not the Ukrainians doing this. What we find when we look at the when we look at the footage, what we find is Polish forces, and there's evidence of Polish mercenaries, and there's several videos. Here we see Polish soldiers with symbols of a Polish battalion, with a symbol also holding the symbol of a Russian post office, wearing signs nevertheless also of the Russian Free Battalion, but clearly not Russian. A Polish group participating in the raid and acknowledged by the Ukrainian Telegraph writers. PDK, the Polish Volunteer Corps. And here I think we've got somebody saying Abracadabra, Kurban, which means bitch. And here, this is the bit that the British newspapers have covered. This is the leader of the Russian Free Battalion offering to meet the governor of the region to discuss the general situation and the war itself, and in return, in exchange for 2 Russian soldiers. One of them is clearly injured. He's in some sort of he's got this silver foil on him, and the governor has refused to meet the leader, claiming that the 2 soldiers must have already been killed because the Russian Free Battalion are simply Nazis. So there we are. That's where we are at the moment. I'll bring more of an update later on.